Big, 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 Big by Zhou Dedong. As a child, he was forever indulging in wild thoughts. Suppose there were a spacecraft. It surpassed cosmic speed, many times faster than the speed of light. It flew in one direction only, always deeper and deeper into the darkness of space. It could steer around one celestial body after another on its own. Stars, planets, moons, comets, meteors. Its course had not the slightest curve, so it could never come back. The person at the controls would have fired off his own life. The universe was infinite. The spacecraft's power was eternal. The astronaut had been injected with something that required no nourishment and no metabolism. His life was eternal. Year after year, he kept flying. After countless ages, was he still flying? What would he finally see? What would he finally run into? This boy was called Mian. Once, he read a novel written by a man named Wisely. All things in the universe are actually expanding all the time, growing larger without a moment's pause. Because everything is growing larger at the same rate, we cannot perceive it. The more you think about it, the more terrifying it becomes. Mian tried a different line of thought. Suppose everything in the universe stopped expanding, and only one person did not stop, but kept growing. What would happen in the end? Mian often thought of things like this too. A speck of dust floats in the air, and countless microbes live on it. The microbes would never know that outside the dust there is a house, and inside the house there are people, bread, a computer, a dictionary, and love. They would never understand that beyond the house there is an earth, the sea, and forests. They would never understand that beyond the earth lies the universe, the boundless void of space. Suppose the earth were a speck of dust floating in the air, and human beings were the microbes clinging to it. Then a single instant would be the equivalent of countless ages to mankind. Then human beings would never understand whether, at the ultimate end of the vast universe, beyond the reach of human technology, there is also a house, whether something lives inside that house, whether outside the house there is a larger object bearing it, and whether beyond that object there is an infinite space, while that object itself is like a floating speck of dust, and beyond that. That night, Mian was asleep when he suddenly fell to the floor. He woke up, opened his eyes, and found that the house had shrunk. Looking more closely, he saw that his bed, his quilt, and his pillow had all become smaller. He hurriedly took out a ruler to measure it, but the ruler had clearly shrunk too. There was no need to measure. It struck him at once. He was growing larger. Looking down, he saw that his shorts had split apart, the scraps of cloth falling to the floor. In his terror, everything in front of him seemed to shrink even more. If he did not get out soon, he would burst the house apart. He quickly crawled into his mother's room and saw that she had become almost baby-sized, sleeping peacefully on the tiny bed. He did not dare wake her for fear of frightening her. With a quick-witted scramble, he crawled out of the house, stood up and let out a long breath. He was terrified and had no idea what to do. If anyone discovered him, they would be scared half to death and then call 110. The police would not harm him. He might be taken to some research institute. But he kept growing without pause. No house would be able to contain him, and soon he would be able to stand only in a public square. After a little more time, the whole city would have no space left that could hold him, and he would have to go out into the wild. By then, human beings would look like ants to him and no longer be able to speak with him. The ants in turn would no longer be able to study him. They could only stare helplessly as he grew bigger and bigger. By then, he had become an oddity. At that point, he could no longer count on human beings remaining kind to him. He was growing without pause, and there was no doubt he was beginning to threaten human safety. Human beings would have to find a way to destroy him. He knew the killing power of the weapons humanity possessed, not just him. Even the earth could be destroyed many times over. Under cover of night, while everyone was asleep, the giant man fled toward the wilderness in colossal terror. To the north of the city lay a primeval forest. It was his only destination. The residents along the streets all thought it had been an earthquake, and many ran downstairs talking about the tremor they had just felt. But the next day, no official report mentioned any earthquake from the night before. Mian grew bigger and bigger. Buildings, roads, and rivers looked to him like toy blocks, like the view a passenger has from an airplane window after the plane has climbed high into the sky. He lightened his steps. First, he did not want to wake any more people. Second, he was afraid he might accidentally step on a house. By then he had not gone very far. In his heart, he and the ant-sized humans beneath his feet still seemed to belong to the same bloodline, the same kind. They had noses, eyes, and mouths. So did he. He still could not bear to trample their property or wound their lives. Before dawn, he finally stepped into the primeval forest. To him, it was a broad stretch of grassland with not a trace of humanity. He could catch his breath. Suddenly he felt hungry. He looked around. There was no food. He lowered his head, thinking of catching some living thing to eat. What should he eat? A tiger? If he caught one, he could only eat it raw. He had no fire. Human civilization, the bustle and splendor of the mortal world, no longer belonged to him. He gazed around him as if he were in prehistory and felt loneliness with terrible force. In the beginning of heaven and earth, it was an age of heroism. Back then, though human beings had nothing at all, they dared to fight heaven and earth. With no tools, they ground them from stone. With no grain, they broke open the wasteland and farmed. With no fire, they drilled wood to make it. With no water, they dug wells. Mian pushed aside tree after tree, but found neither a tiger nor any other large animal. A vast fear surged up in his heart again. How had the dinosaurs become extinct? His eyes fixed on the city in the distance. Wild animals were growing fewer and fewer. Now the most abundant creatures were human beings, thick on the ground, there wherever you looked. If he wanted to survive, he could only eat people. He walked toward them softly. The people spotted him and fled in all directions. Mian could not see the terror on their faces or hear their frenzied cries. He only saw them scurrying about like insects. He plucked them up one by one and began to swallow them. Halfway through, he suddenly stopped. He did not know whether among the people he was eating there might be his mother, his 2 younger brothers and 1 younger sister, his first teacher Zhang Baotren, or his girlfriend Bao Li. He wanted to eat his enemies, Director Huang from the office, who had always made life difficult for him, the police officer from the neighborhood precinct named Ding Peizhen, and the neighbor who had insulted his younger brother, but he could not tell them apart. He clenched his teeth and went on catching people to eat. He was still growing. At last, human beings disappeared from his naked eye. Even the tallest buildings had shrunk to the size of grains of sand. A bone-deep cold filled heaven and earth, mountains and ridges. Ravines and gullies beneath his feet, they were nothing more than uneven ground. He thought of the phrase, a clay pellet. He had already taken leave of humanity. Mian broke free of gravity and floated in the dark of space. By then, the directions east, south, west, north, up and down no longer had any meaning. He was lengthening, growing, expanding. After he left the earth, it was as if he had entered another kind of time, and his rate of expansion grew faster and faster. Bit by bit, he reached toward the end of the universe, toward the end of time. He had already become something else. He no longer needed food, and he no longer needed to breathe. He never died. Many years passed. The celestial bodies in space kept moving, some swiftly, some slowly, and they grew smaller and smaller. The earth was already the size of a speck of dust, and human beings were the bacteria clinging to it. The sun was nothing more than a candle in the endless dark. In space there were countless candles flickering. One candle after another lit up, and one after another went out. There were also clusters of bright nebulae, dark nebulae. Mian remembered watching a performance in a stadium. When the stage went dark, the packed blackness of the stands looked just like this. Lighters, glow sticks, flashlights, tiny points of light, flickering on and off. Suppose all at once something more powerful and more eternal than the sun were to illuminate this boundless darkness, would he then see faces packed tight everywhere, from one planet in the solar system to another? It might very well take 10,000 light years. Human beings would never know the secret here. Those bacteria could only explore the dust near them by then. He had been free of the earth for countless ages. By the candlelight, he studied that floating speck of dust and wondered, were human beings still on it? Had they gone extinct? Even if they still survived, they would be human beings many generations removed from him. They would have nothing to do with him. Had their numbers perhaps already reached 10 billion? Suddenly he felt a violent urge. He pinched up that speck of dust and threw it into the candle flame. He kept growing. The sun grew smaller and smaller, until at last it became like a firefly, and in the end could no longer be seen. The universe grew even darker. Mian remembered a book he had once read on Earth. It was a religious book, and it told this story. One morning a scientist went to visit a friend. When he entered his friend's house, he saw a strange sight. Several exquisite models of the heavens floated in midair, the Earth revolving around the sun, the moon revolving around the Earth. The scientist was stunned and asked loudly, "Who made them move?" His friend said calmly, "No one made them move. They move by themselves." The scientist cried out, "Impossible! If no one drives them, how could they work together with such exquisite precision?" His friend said the sun, earth, and moon in the universe move in exactly the same way, and even more mysteriously. If you say they are formed by nature, how can you believe that? This story was very persuasive. But who was driving these celestial bodies? Mian felt that, in the darkness, there really were two enormous eyeballs, staring at him as if he were dust. Growing, growing, growing. Another countless ages passed. At last, Mian's head bumped against something like a huge lid. His heart leaped wildly. Perhaps this was the ultimate end of the universe. Open the lid. And perhaps he would see the one who ruled behind the scenes. He pushed the lid open. More precisely, it was opened by the mysterious force that had been causing him to grow without end. Mian seemed to crawl out of a sooty black sphere, and the boundless light stabbed at his eyes so fiercely that he squeezed them shut. This was eternal light. This was not the sun's light. A vast shadow of fear spread through his heart. He did not dare open his eyes. He could not imagine what he would see. In the end, though, he peered through the slit of his eyelids. Above him was not blue, but red. Endless red. Looking out in every direction, he saw many brilliant things: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, like houses, like machines, like animals, like plants. This was a larger world. Mian did not know who ruled this larger world, and he did not know what all those bright, colorful things were. For convenience, we had better give the ruler a name. Let us call it God. God's chemical makeup might be entirely different from that of life on Earth. God might not even need liquid water and might have no physical form at all. God might know everything about the solar system. That dark sphere might well have been one of its laboratories, and human beings a species it had cultivated. It held the fate of every person, their joys and sorrows. And that endless red might have been nothing more than a lamp it had made. Human beings have long agonized over where their species came from and where the soul goes. They will never get the answer. Their species may well have been created by God. In the end, their souls may well be taken back by God. But some unknown deviation must have occurred in God's experiment, causing Mian alone to suddenly grow larger. Just as a deviation in the cultivation of plants can produce one that shoots up madly without stopping. Of course, God may not understand the solar system either. Just as a person may not know that a few rice grain-sized spiders live in the wardrobe. Mian was utterly bewildered. He simply could not communicate with this larger world. Just as I said before, a bacterium cannot understand a computer. Then again, a computer cannot understand a bacterium either. Mian kept growing, growing, growing. Another countless ages passed. At last, Mian realized that the red light was also a candle floating in the universe, and that it too was becoming fainter and fainter. Mian was once again swallowed by endless darkness, loneliness, hopelessness, fear, sorrow, after a long, long, long stretch of time. Mian burst through that dark space once more and showed his head in yet another larger world. He popped out like a chick breaking through its shell. Slowly, he opened his eyes and looked around. He was dumbfounded. It was a big room with many people in white coats. They were gathered around him, smiling and saying something as if they had all been waiting for him. There was a lot of medical equipment in the room, and a strong smell of chemicals hung in the air. Yes, after such a long development, Mian had arrived in our world. He had arrived in our kind of time. Within our bodies shrunk down countless times. In that dark microscopic space invisible to the naked eye, there are many multicolored worlds. Shrink it down countless times more, and within one of those multicolored worlds there are many even smaller dark worlds. Shrink it down countless times again, and within one dark world there are countless flying objects. On one of those flying objects cling many wondrous creatures. If there were a magical magnifying glass that could enlarge these wondrous creatures without limit, we would see that they all wear clothes, have limbs and features, and possess hatred, fear, and beautiful love. Earlier I said, Mian was asleep at home and found that the house, the bed, the quilt, the pillow, and the ruler had all become smaller. He looked at his mother, then fled that very night toward the primeval forest, while the residents along the streets all thought it had been an earthquake. All of that happened in that microscopic world. You may not believe it. That's fine. Think it over carefully. Mian grew up and now lives among you, me and everyone else. We just do not know where he came from. And he has changed his name. One day, he will suddenly expand, burst through the house, burst through the sky, and bring us shock, delight, fear, and threat. Then he will move far away from us. He will go on expanding without end, and one day he will see another race of vast living beings. By then it will be billions of light years away, and billions of years later. By then, humanity, the earth, and the sun may all have perished. We do not know how he would describe our existence to those beings, but they would be astonished. They would look down at their own bodies, shake their heads in disbelief, and laugh.